me start with this. I'm curious. What did you call the stadium? There's so many names for it. What did you call it?
Home. I started at San Diego Stadium, so that was what we called it. And then, of course, when they renamed it Jack Murphy, it became the Murph to all of us. So, but it was our home field, and gosh, we love playing there.
When you see this, I don't know the last time you drove by it or saw it or flew over it, but when you see what you see behind me, just the shell of itself in rubble, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me sad, obviously, but that's the world we live in, and I'm glad to see that they're salvaging as much as possible to help in other areas. So it doesn't make you feel any better that it's gone, but as you know, it's just that's life.
Yeah. Let me take you back. Share with me. I mean, you played there a long time. I mean, you add up all the games between preseason and regular season, home games. I mean, I don't know, was it 130, 140 times maybe you played inside that stadium? Does anything in particular, is there a game, a moment, something that happened in that stadium to you or to a teammate or to anybody that really stands out in your mind?
It's there were so many great moments and so many disappointing moments, but that's the game of football too. But the energy, the electricity of Charger power when it first took off after Don Coryell got there was just amazing. To be out on that field in that huddle, knowing we had 80 yards to go to score a touchdown to win a ball game, and having the crowd just build and build and build with excitement. It literally carried us down the field at times, knowing that those people in their Charger-powered T-shirts and their placards were there behind us and wanting us to do well and willing us to do well.
I've been here in San Diego for about 22 years now, working with CBS Channel 8. So I'm asking a lot of people about that time. I obviously wasn't here when you were there. I'll tell you what, though, I remember as a kid on the East Coast, I couldn't wait. I would always beg my parents to let me stay up till halftime of Monday Night Football because I knew Howard Cosell was going to show me this aerial attack that was going on in San Diego, a place I had never been as a kid. And I saw you just hucking that football downfield to this array of wide receivers. I remember, JJ catching these 80-yard bombs from you, and it got me excited. And I'm a kid in Massachusetts. And so now I've asked a lot of people here, and they say, oh my God, Charger power. When the Chargers were rolling and they had it going and they had that aerial attack, there was nothing like it. It took over this city. Is that right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And, I hear that a lot from my friends that live on the East Coast or grew up on the East Coast, that they couldn't wait for the 4:00 game. But you talk about those Monday night games, you talk about electricity in the stadium. It was phenomenal. And you mentioned John Jefferson. Not only was he just a great player and a great person, but he really started that Charger power by embracing it and by doing things before the game and that we would never had seen before. He's pointing at the Raiders or he's pointing at the other team and jumping up and down and waving a flag and doing all the crazy things that as players, we would take him aside and say, hey, calm down. You're going to get killed here because they're really good. But he believed in the power of the Charger fans. He believed in the power of the offense and the philosophy of Don Coryell. And he really gave life to Charger power.
Can you talk a little bit about that Coryell era? And obviously when he came in, I got to believe it, you feel like it changed your career. It changed the direction you were going in. I mean, it was new. It was different. It was amazing. It was exciting. Again, a young man in Massachusetts watching these highlights on TV. I couldn't wait to see it. It was special, wasn't it? Can you talk a little bit about that era?
Well, if it wasn't for Don Coryell, you wouldn't be talking to me right now, Kyle. I wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, as would, Charlie Joyner and Kellen Winslow. We knew that Coryell was a genius because of what he had done at San Diego State and with the St. Louis Cardinals. And so he came to San Diego. He not only turned around my career, he turned around our franchise. And the things that he gave us as players, number one, was a tremendous system, but it was the belief that we could get it done by throwing the ball. And we could get it done by being a little bit different than the other teams, in that we could line up with 3, 4, 5 wide receivers and go down the field. And the heck with a pass rush. We were going to get the ball off. We were going to throw hot. We were going to do all the things that nobody else in the league was doing at the time. And we were going to win doing it.
And can you describe what that was like for you to be the guy throwing those footballs to the guys like Johnny Jefferson and Wes Chandler and Charlie Joyner, and to have that aerial attack? And when you did, and the crowd went crazy in that stadium, describe those moments for us.
Well, I wish I had enough vocabulary to really do it justice, but the feeling that we had so often with those players you mentioned, and with that offensive line, and with the running backs that we had in Muncie and Little Train James and Gary Anderson and James Brooks, those type of players in that situation, we were so confident. I mean, to the point where we were cocky. And, sometimes that's a bad word, but really it worked for us. And we had that feeling of not so much invincibility, but like nobody could stop us. And really the times that we struggled were when, I'd throw a stupid interception or two or fumble the ball. And those were the times that it was just us stopping us. It wasn't our opponents.
I was looking back at a lot of the history of the Chargers, and you look at some of the biggest games you played, and a lot of them happened on the road. I remember in the Miami and Cincinnati, some of these, legendary games. And I was really racking my brains for that legendary game in Qualcomm. And you said it earlier, there was a lot of disappointment in that stadium. There were a lot of tough losses in that stadium. Holy Roller, obviously, it was one of the craziest ones of all time. So, was it cursed in some way? Like, why was, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Did you feel there were more good moments than bad, or were there some really tough moments there that you endured?
Well, I'm not sure what games you were watching, Kyle, because we never lost any games. Again, I don't think the stadium was cursed. I just think that at times we didn't play as well as we should have, through too many interceptions, or couldn't come back from some really good teams like the Raiders. But that Holy Roller was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah. Does that still grind on you a little bit? I know you weren't happy about that. And, you had a couple of words for who's the referee was Jerry Markbright. Is that right?
Yeah. And if he were to walk into this house right now, I would tell him he blew that call. That was his first game as an NFL referee, and one that I'm sure that he'll never forget, because I'll never let him forget it.
What were you thinking when that was happening? Obviously, you're on the sideline watching this play.
I thought we had to move game one, because Woodrow Lowe had tackled Stabler, and he obviously threw the ball forward. It wasn't a fumble. His throwing motion showed that it was a pass. And anyway, it's ancient history. I think the thing that bothered me most is that there was a picture in the paper the next day of the play from the end zone through the play to our bench. And we were all celebrating because we thought the game was over. And I jumped off the ground about that far. I was so excited.
Well, one thing I always found interesting is that Kenny Stabler always denied it, right? Forever and ever and ever, he denied it. And then all of a sudden, one day, many, many years later, he said, yeah, of course I threw it. What was I going to do with the ball?
Well, that's why they call him the snake. Now, it was the only play he could make. And that's the type of player he was, always thinking out there, and he got away with one.
Yeah. Is there any other memory, any other thing, any other person, anything connected to that stadium that you can share with us, and maybe I wouldn't know about, that I couldn't ask you the question?
There was a sign, and we had great signs in the stadium. I mean, there was a sign in the stadium, had to be the biggest sign in the history of any stadium, and it was Louis. And from one side of the end zone all the way across, Louis. We thought that was pretty good. I didn't know Louis could spell on it that well.
Well, that's awesome. You know, is it sad? Is it sad? I mean, when you see it behind me, you know, and crumbling to the ground, it's going to be gone soon. Does that close some chapter in your life, or is it long past that? What does it feel like for you?
Well, you know, we spent a lot of time there, obviously, not just during the season, but in the off season as well. And the Padres were just a couple of doors down where their locker room was. So we got to know the Padres very well. And, you know, we went to a lot of afternoon baseball games after our workouts. And I remember being with Goose Gossage in the locker room before the game, and the baseball game had already started. And he said, come on down to the bullpen in the seventh inning. I'll be warming up. And so me and a couple other guys, I think it was Big Ed and Louie and I, we went down there underneath the stadium, the stands there, and there's a door that you could open. And as we opened that door, we heard this noise, spow, spow. And we go, oh my God, what is that? And it was Goose warming up. And he was throwing these fastballs and getting ready. So we sat in the bullpen a couple of times with the Goose and watching him get ready. But you know, there was so many moments in the stadium. We would go to concerts, you know, to see the Beach Boys there. And I even caught a foul ball at a Padre game one time. That was a highlight of my life up to that moment.
Really? What was the situation? Do you remember who hit it? Where were you sitting?
I was sitting right behind home plate, and the ball actually bounced on the aisleway in front of me and gave me a nice soft toss to go up there and elbow people out of the way and make the grab.
Wait, is this while you were quarterbacking? I mean, people like Dan Fouts just elbowed me out of the way to get a ball.
Well, I was incognito. I had a Padre hat on.
Speaking of Padres, I should ask you, playing all those years in a multi-use stadium, and you're playing oftentimes at shortstop, right? I mean, you're playing on dirt, you know, I remember that being weird too, watching that on television. Go, why are they playing on a baseball field? I don't understand. What was that like?
Well, you know, early in the season, in the preseason, because that's during the Padre season, there were times, excuse me, when the turf or the dirt would be too soft. And then there would be times it would be too hard. So each game that you went out there, you had to adjust. And we felt it was a home field advantage for us because our opponents had never played on dirt either. So it was a similar situation in Oakland with that stadium. But with our stadium, we felt, at least everybody but Rolf Benirschke thought it was an advantage.